Welcome to Being Love TV's
Souls Talking Brain.
La 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 la.
Ta-da! Welcome, everybody. I am actually the most excited about today's show.
Oh, are we?
I am very excited about today's show. I hope all you viewers out there who are watching us live right now are doing fabulous. We've got quite the show for you this evening. Oh, yes. Yes, we do.
Do we now?
Yes, we do.
We have a very, very special guest, actually. Her name is Roberta Grimes, and she is an afterlife expert and author of the book, The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next. So
quite the title.
I was just going to say,
like, the title.
If we can reiterate the title one more time. The fun of dying. Find out what really happens next. That in and of itself is enough to simply intrigue, I think, pretty much anyone. But before we delve into the depths of the fun of dying, why don't we learn a little bit more about who Roberta Grimes is?
Roberta Grimes is a business attorney, novelist, and speaker based in Austin, Texas, who had two extraordinary experiences of light as a child. In an attempt to understand her experiences, she has spent decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent communications from the dead and other afterlife-related evidence that eventually enabled her to assemble in an in-depth understanding of who and what we are, how reality works, the nature of God, and the meaning and purpose of our lives.
Holy moly.
Holy
That's
moly.
Like a mouthful there.
Blah, 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 blah.
If there was never one to speak of, that definitely is one.
Yes.
Roberta has learned so much about the death process and the period immediately following death that in 2010 she published a brief summary of the best information called The Fun of Dying, Find Out What Really Happens Next. So obviously, I'm sure, obviously this little firefly fairy over here is just brimming with fabulousness and can't wait to get to Roberta. And I'm sure that all of you are filling with bunches and bunches and oodles of questions that you would like to ask Roberta. So I invite you to do so. The show is audience participatory, and somewhere around our video that you are watching, to the left, to the right, below, above, there is a social stream or chat tab. And it is through these that you are able to communicate with us live here, as well as, of course, with Roberta, and ask her any questions about dying and the afterlife that you may have. So why don't we get Roberta on the phone ASAP so we can ask her all of our fabulous questions about death, dying,
and the fun of it,
and the afterlife.
So we're just going to call Roberta and then have her.
That is as calling Roberta. And we are connecting.
Oh, you're calling the wrong person. Oops. That can happen, ladies and gentlemen. We can always call the wrong person.
Oops.
Oops. We're calling the right person now.
You know, we got a little excited. Death, dying. Roberta?
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you today, love?
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you and to talk to you. I'm going to put on my earphones, though.
Okay,
I think
perfect.
that will help.
Perfect.
That sounds
perfect.
wonderful.
Okay.
All right. So, Roberta, let us know when you're all hooked up there.
Plugged in, more like.
Hello?
Oop.
Oh, we lost the connection.
We're just
we will
getting
get
back.
it right back. Here we go.
Here we go.
Look at that. It automatically called. I wonder who did that.
Did I lose you? I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's
Not
totally
at
okay.
all.
We
found
got you back. So, are you all hooked up?
I am all hooked up.
Okay, wonderful. So,
And raring to go.
as are we. We're very excited. So, Roberta, I was hoping that before we got into, I'm sure, the plethora of questions that will be brought to your attention, that you might be able to introduce yourself a little bit to our audience, angels, and let them know where all of this information that you'll be sharing with us came from. Considering the fact that, to our knowledge, none of us have met anyone who's come back from the dead, or anybody who has come before being born to sit down and have a conversation with them. Where is all of this information from that you'll be sharing today?
Well, a lot of it comes from the early part of the 20th century when we were getting very good and numerous afterlife communications from people through deep trance mediums. There was a great effort made on the part of the dead back then to get this information to us and to help us understand that their lives were eternal and therefore our lives were eternal as well. And they were trying to convince scientists. So they were very disciplined in what they were doing, and what they were doing was also being documented by serious researchers. And all of that information is still available to us in dusty old books, but scientists ignored it. As I guess you wouldn't be surprised to know. They've been ignoring this, to this day, they ignore this information. But nonetheless, it's there, and anyone with who perhaps is insane enough and eager enough to spend a lot of time reading it, like me, can learn a great deal about what's going on. Primarily, in fact, because it's all consistent. It's as if they've all been to the same place. Indeed, they have been to the same place. It's a most amazing thing. I just can't begin to tell you how exciting it is to do that research and discover that hundreds of people who had all been to the same place communicated to us in detail what it's like.
Okay, so I have a twofold question for you. One, you mentioned that in the early 20th century, the dead, or those who had transcended the physical, were very eager to communicate. So question one is, why did they stop? And then question two is just a verification question. More from a scientific perspective, I just wanted to verify with you that from a statistical basis, if we were to look at all of the findings that you've looked at statistically, we could say that there is some kind of statistical corroboration between all of the different stories that you've heard, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I thought when I started to do this research and I saw how many communications they were, I thought I would be able to find a number of them that were saying somewhat similar things and use those to build an understanding of the greater reality we enter at death.
Okay.
What I found was there were no outliers. They were all talking about the same place. They'd been to the same place. They had similar experiences. The physics was the same. The process was the same. The way people passed their time was the same. Everything was the same.
Wow.
So it's easy to study statistically because there's no outliers.
Right.
I've never found one, and
Okay,
I don't
so-
think anyone else has either.
Okay, so that gives a basis for many
Uh-huh.
who might doubt, because again, we're talking about the field of metaphysics and metasciences as opposed to traditional sciences. But if we want to bring in the traditional sciences, statistically speaking, to be able to have so many disconnected accounts that are so much similar to one another, statistically would have some significance to it.
Yeah, it's impossible for it not to be real. Statistically, the odds against chance are just so great.
Right.
And as to your first question, why did they stop? A couple of reasons. The best of these communications were received through deep trance mediums, who seem to require decades of sitting in the dark night after night, developing their mediumistic ability in order for them to be successful as deep trance mediums. And that was something that could be done in the 19th century, but early part of the 20th, we get, of course, not just electric lights, but also radio, a lot more to do. And so we stopped developing deep trance mediums as we had developed in them in the, say, 1880s.
That is fascinating.
That's the last?
That's one reason. The other reason is, frankly, the dead don't like to be stiffed. And they were stiffed by science. So they just stopped doing it. They stopped being behind this process. They started trying again in the 1980s, because it's very important, frankly, apparently from their perspective, that the word get out, that everybody understand what's true. And there was very, very good work done with electronic means of communication in the 1970s, 1980s, into the 1990s. But again, scientists ignored it. So they said, later for you, Charlie, we're going to go do something else. And they just stopped doing it. Now, today, in the early part of the 21st century, they're at it again. And it's the most promising time, really, in the history of trying to understand what goes on at death. Because there is very good work being done by these dead teams of coming up with very good ways to use computers to communicate. And that's going to be the next big news. And it'll break within the next 10 years, I'm pretty confident.
So you mentioned that there are truths that they are attempting to share. So perhaps we can get into a couple of those. Did you have a specific question you wanted to ask, Aline?
I have so much to ask, but one at a time.
So what maybe an overview, general overview, if you can give us a brief overview of some of the truths that you feel are the most pertinent for us to know regarding death, dying, and the afterlife.
One of the most pertinent truths, I think the most important truth is that we survive. Our minds are eternal. We never began, we never will end. And what we think of as death is just the most massive illusion that you can possibly imagine. That's the biggest thing. So we shouldn't even think of ourselves as immortal, because that defines us in terms of death, and death doesn't exist.
Well, death in the form that we know it to be.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, our body is just like your old Toyota. When your Toyota runs out, you get out of the car and you get a new car and you go off and continue, but it has nothing to do with you. The same really is true of our bodies, which we leave when we leave this plane, but then we go to the next one and we can have a whole new beautiful young body. They are waiting for us. And it's really too good to be true, but
it sounds too good to be true. It does. It really does. When you say that it's I mean, being that, to some extent, in my personal opinion, death is not necessarily the end. Even though, as far as proof goes, as far as what we know, we don't know what we do know. But then as somebody like you who has spent, 40 plus years, who's been doing research with respect to, what do you call it? The medium, the trans.
Deep trance mediums. That's one of the ways that we've received information. There are good materialization mediums working even now who also give us. I mean, here's the fact.
Mm-hmm.
We have had abundantly demonstrated the fact that our lives are eternal. It's just not even open to question.
Yeah.
The fact that mainstream scientists will not look at it, and they basically have their fingers in their ears and their eyes over, sort of hands over their eyes, and they're humming loudly. They just don't want to know about it. That's irrelevant to the fact that we have demonstrated repeatedly that it's true.
Well, it's interesting to me that science and metaphysics and spirituality all on the same on that level have always somewhat disagreed, and now just recently in this new era, in this new time, they are sort of merging. But it's interesting to me with respect to that there are all these findings and it is being ignored. What is the main purpose for why science specifically is ignoring this particular documentation that has been going on for so long?
Because scientists have to feed their children.
Okay.
The problem is that this sort of dichotomy between spiritual truths and so-called physical truths, it goes back thousands of years. They tell me Plato and Aristotle. That's how far back it goes. But the division was renewed in the early part of the 20th century. Remember I said there was this big effort being put on by the dead to let us know that they were there. And they developed some very good proofs. And this was something that scientists didn't want to look at because they were so steeped in the thought that was something religions should be studying. That was not something scientists should study. So they came up with what they called some fundamental dogmas of science. Mm-hmm. One of them was atheism. Mm-hmm. One of them was materialism.
Right.
Now, anything with a dogma is a belief system. It's a religion. So in the early part of the 20th century, what they did was they turned science into a religion.
Right.
So when we go to them and we say, hey, look, you have some fundamental understandings that just aren't right, here's evidence, they don't want to know about it. Just go to your fundamentalist Christian friend and say, hey, what you think isn't quite right. What's he going to tell you? No, he's going to follow his religion, and that's just where science is at this point. They follow their religion.
Right.
And it's almost laughable to watch because they're more and more discovering themselves the same truths we've discovered, and yet they don't know what to do with them, and they're flummoxed.
What do you do with it?
Well, I do find that science is starting to come around, and we do have the different branches of science now that are much more popular, astrophysics and quantum physics and so on and so forth. So I do feel that there is a grander expansiveness of consciousness with respect to the scientific field as a whole, which is allowing us to have a grander understanding of our... You didn't like the word immortality, but of our infinity.
Yes, our eternity.
Our eternity.
Yes.
So, and I think that it is becoming much more accepted and more popular with amongst the majority. And I think it's more of like a massaging at this point for many of us to be able to just start to allow the aspects of our minds that are so stuck in the old to start to open up and blossom into the new. Having said that, and I think honoring science, I would love to hear some of the findings that you have compiled in your research with respect to dying and the afterlife itself. For many people, the idea of dying is wrought with fear and horror and pain and suffering. So if perhaps we can say a few words about dying itself, and then you mentioned one little tidbit that when we die, we all get these beautiful young bodies that are waiting for us. If we can get a little more...
I'm going to look too. Oh, I'm going to be gorgeous.
Yeah. So if we can get a little bit more information about that as well, is it our body? Do we choose a new body? What is everybody doing?
What's everybody doing?
That, and a bit about that, like, are we physical still? Because obviously there is some kind of a change, and what is that experience like, and what are the things we can do and can't do, so on and so forth.
Well, that's about an hour show right there. How do we start this? Understand that what we think of as physical actually is energy based.
Okay.
This level of reality is based in energy.
Okay.
It's not solid. We only think it's solid because our bodies are made of the same energy stuff as the reality around us that we believe we see.
Okay.
Right in the same place are at least 6 primary levels of what we think of as the afterlife, and they're exactly where we are. They're just separated by us because of their higher vibratory rates.
Okay.
So it's just like if you had a TV set in the room where you are, and right now your mind is that TV set. It's tuned to this level of reality and to that body on this level of reality.
Okay.
When you die, all that happens is you go from channel 1.0000 whatever to channel 3 or channel 4.
Okay.
You pick up a whole new solid reality, just as solid, just as beautifully detailed, just as gorgeous, much more gorgeous than this one.
Alrighty then.
Your mind creates a body there, which is as you see yourself. We usually create a body that looks about 30 years old, but we can look younger or older.
Okay.
Usually we look like the same gender and the same, sort of the way we looked at 30, which is why I know how I'm going to look. I was gorgeous at 30. And that's the body we use in that new reality. But I can't sufficiently emphasize to you the fact that it's just as real, just as solid as what we have here. It's just in the same place, the same way all those TV channels are in the same place, and it's just whichever one your TV tunes to. Well, here it's whichever one your mind tunes to.
So it's the same thing as it's just an energy vibration. It's sort of like, if we change our mind, we are focusing on the energy that is within us that we're creating, because we're focusing on the emotion or the thought and so on and so forth, and it is an energy, right? So it's when we're switching, the same thing as when we're switching. Our mind is changing our minds with respect to this or that. But it's also, you're saying it's the same reality.
Yeah, well, these are all really, you might have to say they're different realities that all just exist in the same place. The afterlife levels are all quite different from one another.
Okay.
The lowest one, the one closest to the vibratory rate of material matter, is what Jesus called the outer darkness, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. It's just really bad there. It's cold, dark, smelly, and disgusting, and populated by demons who actually are people. And the only way that we can get there is if we put ourselves there by an inability to forgive ourselves for things we've done in this lifetime. That seems to be the only way people end up there. Just above that is a slightly higher level. It's not so much punishment, but it's sort of like a purgatory. It's not great, but it's not awful level. Levels 3 through 5 are what we call the Summerland. That's a Viking term. I never say heaven. I don't say heaven, and I usually don't say God, because those are religious terms, and they put a whole picture in our minds, which we don't want to put there, because it's not real.
Yeah.
So let's start a new term. The Summerland is beautiful. Level 3 is where most of us seem to enter. It's gorgeous. It is just the most exquisite place you can imagine, and nothing ever dies there. All the vegetation is intensely colored and just beautiful. The level above it, level 4, is even more beautiful, and we can only get there if we can raise our spiritual vibration by learning to better love and forgive, among other things. Level 5 is even more gorgeous. It's fantastic. Level 6 is called the causal or the mental level. I know someone who lives there, and he calls it the teaching level. It's where the very, very, very advanced beings live, who give a lot of their devotion to teaching people to learn to better love and forgive, both on earth and in the afterlife levels. So that's a quick tour of what it's like there.
So, okay. So there's 6 levels in the afterlife, and then
roughly.
Roughly.
Yeah, okay.
Each one is delineated by the vibrational frequency that your energetic beingness or makeup is attuned to. And in order to be able to increase or move from one level to the next is an action of forgiveness and love for self. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the kind of love we're supposed to be learning is really much. One of the things we learn when we first transition and we do our life review and sort of learn what our life was about, we learn that the standards for living on earth were really much higher than we ever dreamed. We're here to learn how to love perfectly, perfectly, even the most unlovable. What Course in Miracles calls special love, just love for your family, is actually the wrong way to go. Loving the guy panhandling at the side of the road, loving everybody as really part of you, because as Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself.
Well,
so
yes.
that's how we're supposed to learn to love. Really, really, really harder, more advanced than anything that we ever knew. And forgiveness is the same way. We're meant to forgive completely as if things never happened. Not just maybe the easy things. Well, I forgive you that you missed dinner because I love you anyway. No, horrible things done to your family or whatever, you're meant to forgive that as if it never happened.
Okay.
These are serious lessons we've set for ourselves.
Of course. And it
these
is
all sort
in
of
meeting
make
these
sense.
that we're able to increase the vibrational rate that we are existing at, and therefore be able to go up a level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now,
as we better, more perfectly love and forgive, we raise our spiritual vibratory rate, and we are able to sustain a higher level of the afterlife. Yes.
Okay. Now, we're in the afterlife. We have these bodies. It's very much the same as
gorgeous
here.
Bodies.
Are we eating?
Right.
Are we eating? Are we drinking?
Yes.
Are we enjoying the physical pleasures that we enjoy on Earth there?
Well, we don't have internal organs. We can eat and drink, but the food and the drink just disappear. We don't need. That's not how we sustain those bodies. They're sustained by breathing the energy that's produced by the plants, by the water, by all the vegetation.
So kind of like what people call sun gazing today.
Is this
what? I'm sorry.
It's kind of like what some have, what some people today here in these earth bodies call sun gazing, where they feed off of the sun as opposed to food and water and what have you.
I'm not aware of that, but yeah, if people do that, yes, the vegetation actually gives off energy. The water gives off energy.
As it does here.
And
that sustains us. It's really quite. They say it's really quite marvelous not to have to eat, drink, or sleep, which our bodies don't have to do. Now, as far as pleasures of the flesh, we don't have flesh there, but we do have sexual organs, and people can complete the sexual act. They seldom do. You almost never see it reported. And even people who died, my friend Mikey, who lives on the 6th level, died at the age of 20. So he would have died in a body of raging hormones. And he says nobody has any interest here. We don't have any sex drive because we don't have any procreative need. And it's just there's so much more to do. But here's something they do. They do what you would call a body meld. Their energy body can meld with somebody else's energy body,
which produces the same effect.
The pleasure of that is apparently much more intense than an orgasm.
Yes,
and they enjoy doing that big time, and there's no morality attached to it.
So you're saying that it's the body or the soul energy vibration-ness being is feeding off just energy on its own, but you're saying the vegetation. Do you mean that there's water there? There's
water there.
There is water, and
there's a place in the Gospels where Jesus is talking to the woman at the well. He says, please get me a drink of water. The woman does, and he says, if you knew who it is that asks you for a drink, you would ask him, and he would give you living water. Now, that's a very important sentence. In the afterlife, the water is alive. This is one thing that's often mentioned by the dead. It's quite different. It's not wet the way our water is. It feels more like silk. You can walk into it and walk out of it and be perfectly dry. And it's energy giving. Bathing in this water is a way to increase the energy of your spiritual body.
Well, I mean, there's a saying. I mean, it's a saying. It's what is known, and known is that 90% of our human body,
70.
or 70%, whatever. It's a large percentage.
Yes.
But it's a large percentage. Let's say, like 60 and above percentage of our human body is water.
That's right.
Right.
So,
as is the earth.
So I'm curious as to. I feel like I'm investigating now. I feel like I'm trying to put these all together with what you're saying. Which actually, speaking of, I just want to put a screen up of your book of the fun of dying, which all of this is written in this book, I'm sure.
Yes.
With respect to this particular what we're talking about right now. So just to take a moment, anyone who is not catching on, and there's so much that there's information that's being shared right now. Roberta's book is accessible, and you can find her book. It's called The Fun of Dying, and you'll see the screenshot right now, which you will be able to go into on your own pace and read, because there's so much. There's just so much. So back to what I was wanting to get to with respect to the vegetation. Is there sky? Is there sun? Is there planets? Because you're saying that we don't have organs, and we're not necessarily a physical entity.
We are physical. We feel that we're physical, but we're made of almost a finer stuff than the matter here.
Okay.
It's almost like alabaster. In some lights, it almost, a woman would trying to describe her body said, I'm looking at my arm and I can almost see through it a little bit, but that doesn't bother me. I mean, it's as normal, warm, solid as your body, but it's just of a little bit finer stuff.
Would you say would you say that this is because we've come and experienced the human life, and so that it is part of our brain, / consciousness that we are projecting onto our memory energy configuration that
we've died.
Once we've experienced what we've experienced, from when the soul mind consciousness has experienced a lifetime, whether here or elsewhere or whatever, is it something obviously that it's taking with, and so therefore the physical body that you're saying that it is a physical look, but it's not necessarily a physical body, that it is here on Earth and there's no organs. Is it just a projection, like a holograph, if you will?
No, it's not. It's really a solid body, but it does.
Without
it isn't.
Without organs.
It's because we have been here and we're used to this shape of a body, apparently, that we choose to have the kind of body we have there.
Right.
It's the period right after death is almost like R&R. It's a period of refreshment, of just relaxing and recovering from what is really considered to be very tough duty, and that's a period of time on Earth. This is not an easy place to grow spiritually. It's a tough place to grow.
Are there other places to grow?
Apparently, yeah. I don't know a lot about this.
I'm curious to know about that.
But we have been told by some beings that there are other places in the universe where people can choose to live most of their lifetimes. It's much easier to be there, but of course it's harder to grow. It's just like, you can develop your muscles by probably sitting at your desk and just moving your arm.
Right.
But you really want to develop your muscles, you better go to the gym. Well, there are places where we can develop yourself in a sort of lazy way. It takes much longer. It's just not as satisfactory. I have seen beings saying that the hardest place to be is this planet, and the best spiritual growth happens on this planet. So we're like the Marines of the universe. We chose to do it the tough way. And so when you walk into some saloon and after you die and you're out traveling around, you walk into a saloon, you just walk with pride because you're a tough guy.
Well, I would not want anywhere else to be as hard as this. That's for sure.
No, but it's not easy, but it is worth it.
Right, because
Life
you're increasing your
Yes.
vibrational
Okay, well, so
frequency.
this is where I would have to ask. Is there an understanding of, okay, so we're finding out what really happens next according to all this research and all these testimonials from years and years and years and years back.
Right.
Within all this, is there anywhere that mentions or talks about or with the experience of why we even come here to begin with?
She said
I'm
that.
here to learn and grow.
I know, but don't you? But this is what this is for me. It's my biggest thing. If we are energy, whatever it is, so we're coming here to learn. But where were we before to know that we have to come to learn anything to begin with?
In other words, why don't we already know it? Is what she'd like to know. If we are consciousness and we are connected,
probably the hardest question to answer. We know that our minds are part of eternal mind.
Right.
Yes.
The same force that brings forth the universe continuously. Our minds are part of that.
Correct.
Infinitely powerful, infinitely loving. So why the heck do we need this experience?
Exactly.
Nobody knows that for certain. A few things, though, I would say, it seems to be valuable to the source energy to have the experience of spiritual growth happening to parts of itself which are not as enlightened. I mean, this seems to be a very productive process. I just don't. I mean, it's sort of like, the ants trying to understand why you're building your house. The picture is too enormous, and the upper level beings tell us so much of this is beyond your ability to understand because your conscious experience is so limited.
Right.
You just can't get. Don't even worry about it. For example, reincarnation. Yes, there is such a thing. Reincarnation happens. Most of us live many lives. But because there is no such thing as objective time, they tell us all our lives are happening simultaneously. All of what we think of as history is happening simultaneously. And if that doesn't make you cross your eyes, I have no idea what will, because it does that for me. I have no idea what that means, but that's what they tell us. And there's a lot of evidence that that's in fact true.
Well, okay, when I would love to ask another question, get a little bit more detail from you about what life, quote unquote, is like in the afterlife. If I can allow you to ponder thereupon as we just take a very quick little commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hello, hello. So for all of those of you who would like to have your products or services known to a greater audience,
Or you.
to have a greater reach and be able to present yourself, there are advertising opportunities, sponsorship opportunities here on Being Love TV. In addition, if there is anything that you would like to suggest regarding a subject matter, a special guest, a good deed doer, please do get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us. The email is about to pop up, beinglove@1isall.com. We very much look forward to hearing from you. We thank you very, very much for getting in touch and for considering Being Love TV and our two shows, Soul's Talking Brain and Radiating Love. Back to Roberta Grimes.
The fun of dying.
Before we went on our break, I had asked you, Roberta, if you can possibly share with us a little bit about what life, quote unquote, is actually like in the afterlife. You had made mention that in your research you had found that there were several consistencies regarding the experience of life after death from the numerous sources of research that you found, and if you can perhaps share with us a little bit of what we can expect. You had mentioned we don't eat, we don't really have sex, we don't really need to sleep. So what exactly are we doing with our infinitum of time?
We're just having fun.
Okay, then.
A lot of the things that people do are directed towards spiritual growth. I mean, people take classes. There are enormous libraries where you can, for example, review all of your other lives and their life reviews, so you can come to better understand what you've learned in those other lifetimes. You can travel. It appears that the travel happens in the afterlife of every culture. All those culture afterlives still exist, and it's a big thing people enjoy doing. You can walk with dinosaurs, go visit the Plains Indians, do whatever you'd like to do.
Wow.
You can go to other planets and visit their afterlives as well. For example,
other planets' afterlife.
The asteroid belt was once a planet. And we are told that it was a planet called Marduk, and that planet was very advanced and peaceful, but they inadvertently blew it up, and they had colonized some other planets in the solar system. So the Mardukians still survive, and you're talking to one now, and I'm talking to one now. Just saying, that's what they tell us. I don't know, but their afterlife is apparently wonderful, and it's a popular Disneyland type attraction. The people enjoy whatever they enjoyed here. You like to swim, you like to climb mountains. There are beautiful mountains there. It's almost like you die and go to Colorado. That's how beautiful the mountains are.
Or the Swiss Alps, you know.
People who like to boat, there are bodies of water that you can boat on. People who like cars or helicopters or airplanes, they can have those here. Although we travel by mind, there's no need for that kind of transportation. Whatever's fun for you, you can have it there. You can learn to paint from Michelangelo. You can learn to play the piano from Mozart. You can do whatever you want to do. You want to do that you think would be fun. It's all there for you.
We have a question which...
from
Oscar is most definitely not stupid. There are no stupid questions.
That's right.
They want to know the animals that we love, like dogs, will they be with us on the other levels?
I love this question. Yes. the animals that are not human, the lower, what we think of as lower animals, question, I'm not sure they are lower, but they have what's called a group soul to which they return when their bodies die. But any animal that has been loved by a human being and loves a human being develops an independent identity. And all of our pets are waiting for us in the afterlife. They're young, they're healthy, you don't need to walk them or feed them. They've been playing and having fun. Sometimes our relatives will take care of them for us, but they're all there. And it's funny that sometimes there are, if you had a lot of dogs or cats or both, we'll get complaints from your loved ones who are having trouble getting to you because all the animals insist on being petted first. This really has been a complaint, which has been registered. They are there, and they love us, and they're happy, and people share them frequently. If let's say you had 25 cats or dogs, you or both, that's too many for you, but there are people who didn't have them for various reasons in their lifetime. Maybe they were allergic, maybe they were just too busy. Well, I'm happy to spend some time with a dog of yours. I'll just take it into my house. We have houses, by the way.
Oh.
And enjoy your dog for a while.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just have so many questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go first. Go ahead.
Well, we've spoken a bit about the again. Obviously,
Thank you, Oscar,
this
by the way.
question can go on. Our interview with you could go on for
infinitum.
Yeah, but I would like to be able to touch upon at least as much as possible, even in the most minute of detail. So we have touched a bit upon the afterlife life. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know if we can look a bit at the process of dying, and then you had mentioned the immediacy following the death. So if we can look at the process of dying and then right after death, because from my understanding, that's a very important period of time. Mm-hmm. this transitional period between the consciousness that we experience here in the physical world and the consciousness that we experience in the afterlife, and before we get to enjoy all the splendors that you have mentioned. So
Are you talking about the period right after we die, or the period starting before we die?
I'm actually asking for both. If you can just touch upon in briefly a little bit about dying itself, and then right after we've died, what happens when we arrive. So both of those.
Dying itself is very easy. For most of us, it seems to be the best time of our lives.
Really?
It's not the best to get there.
Dying is the best time of our lives?
Oh, it's the best.
Why?
Well, for a few reasons. Number one, you finally get out of this, either a damaged body, very old body, a body that can't sustain you anymore. It's like being imprisoned in a boat anchor. Suddenly you're free of that. And you are young, healthy, happy, light. You have much more access to your eternal mind, so you feel brilliant. It's an intensely pleasurable feeling to be suddenly out of that body.
Okay.
People who have died say it's almost orgasmic to die. It feels that pleasurable. It's just wonderful. The trouble is you don't understand that you're really as clueless as a baby. We don't teach people in our culture what to do. And one of the problems is that as you are having this most intense experience of being out of your body, and there's your loved ones are there, maybe it's childhood pets, this is the best reunion you can imagine. At the same time, those who loved you and still love you are around your bed saying, oh, he died, oh, feel for a pulse. And you want to comfort them. But if you do, you're going to lower your vibratory rate to theirs. You'll no longer be able to be in touch with the people who've come to get you, and you can turn yourself into an earthbound spirit. So it's very important, if you remember nothing else from our conversation, to remember that when you are out of your body and that silver cord breaks, go with the people who came to bring you away. Because you'll be able later to help your loved ones, but you can't help them right after your death.
If you do, by mistake, lower your vibrational rate and wound up earthbound, is there a way to alleviate that? Is there a way to rectify that? Or are you like...
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. But the trouble is you have to be rescued. There is a lot of rescue work always going on.
Okay.
People who are still in bodies, or people who just have died, are much easier for earthbound spirits to perceive. So this is one of the things that's popular to do right after we die, is to work with the beings who make it their job to do the rescue work, and to help people who are earthbound to notice. Do you see this wonderful man standing here? Well, he's going to help you get where you need to go.
Okay.
And without your pointing out the guy, apparently the earthbound spirits won't see him. But since you've just been in a body, they can perceive you. But it takes a long time in terms of earth time, and it's so unnecessary to go off track that way.
Okay, so remember when you die, go with the ones who are dead. And the ones who are sobbing,
the ones are your friends
you
now.
can go back to them. Don't worry about it. But first, you have to take care of you. Sounds like something I say all the time, right?
It's just,
self-love.
It's always true. Even after death, it's true.
All right, so we follow the greeters who are dead, dead greeters, who are coming to assist us in this transition, and what happens?
Well, we go through a period. If we look back at the room as we leave it, by the way, it starts to look the way we would imagine the afterlife would look. It looks vague and vapory, and then it sort of disappears. Because remember, it's all energy. It's not solid.
Right.
We tend to go through a period of mist.
Okay.
And then the mist clears. Remember, it's all in the same place. The mist clears, and we are in a brand new, beautiful, solid reality. No sense of the place where we had been. It feels like this is all that exists, this beautiful vista of gardens and flowers in colors you've never seen because they're beyond the visible light spectrum.
But we don't forget
about memories.
They talk about it's just beautiful buildings. It's exquisite there. It's just so beautiful.
What about memories? They're seeing this new reality, this new energetic reality.
Do we forget everything?
Do we forget everything? Do we remember where we were?
We seem to remember not just our lives, and as I say, we immediately go through a life review or very soon after. So then we really get to relive every bit of our lives that we just finished. But
Okay.
we have more access to. Remember, your mind is part of the eternal mind. You have a very, very powerful mind. But while you're in a body, it's as if the body acts as a limiter on your mind. When that body dies and you transition, you seem to have a much more powerful mind. For example, the dead are able to manipulate our reality in ways that are impossible for us. They can mess with matter, make things appear and disappear, do all kinds of things that we can't do.
Here
Just by mind.
they can do that here. They can do that from there here to
Yes.
us. You're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so right afterwards, we're taken. We go through the myths.
Yes.
We have this beautiful, oh my gosh, and then we go into a life review. What is the life review?
Yeah.
Well, the life review happens at some point, not long after we get there, but it's very individual.
Okay.
A life review is essentially reliving every event of your life, either from the most recent event backward or from the first event forward. But you get to literally relive it, to feel how you felt at every stage. But the part that's hard for people is you also get to feel how you made everybody else feel, for good or ill.
So
And people who've been through it tell us it's the hardest thing you've ever done to realize how many things you were ready for, the big things you did wrong, but the little things, the way that you disrespected people or made them feel bad, or the people that loved you that you just spurned, and all the things that you did that made people feel bad, you get to feel how you made them feel.
So you're going through the feeling. Is that what it is? You're going through the review.
It's an emotional review. Yes.
Okay. So
It
here's.
doesn't matter so much what you did. What matters is why you did it, and how it made you feel, and how you made others feel as you did it.
Okay. So here's some random, just a thought. If the fact that we know here, and as human beings in our human physical vessel and Earth, we have feelings, we have emotions.
Yes.
We have thoughts. We have this. We have hunger. We have physical stuff. But over there, we obviously realize, as you're saying, that physically we don't have organs. So it's a very different sort of physical. It's a very different physical existence.
Yes.
What is, if that's true on the physical level? What about feelings? Are feelings even felt in the afterlife?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we are ourselves exactly as we were when we were here, only more so. So we are very emotional. Absolutely. Emotion seems to be at the core of what we think of as mind. Emotional energy is intensely powerful. We sort of are learning that, but because scientists are still steeped in the notion that emotions are just a little artifact of being human rather than a core anything, they don't understand that emotions are energy, and they're very powerful energy too.
Well, yes, that we know that everything is energy before anything becomes anything is energy.
How about this question?
Okay,
maybe is there an emotional maturity? Maybe.
Well, I would hope that there is emotional maturity, or to some degree, I would hope there's something, because obviously it's almost the same as Earth, as we are human, but on a completely different existence, a different reality, and a different. So to me, if we're physical, so then we go through everything else that we experience here, and take everything else here and switch it to however it is different. So it's obviously something that I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, is wrapping around my head, because it's, because you do have to sort of process all this to get from one to the next to the next to the next. But you also mentioned that this is also stages. That when you do, we just, you just explained to us that, when you do die, that you have the most unbelievably amazing experience, and then after that you go with the people that are not sad, right? And then after that there's a review, right? And then and the review is that the review is, you said, it's is it? It's more it's a more feeling based that you're actually. It's like is it
Yes,
trance?
it's a review of how you made people feel.
Okay.
And once you have had the review, you're asked to forgive everybody that was in your life with you.
Okay.
And I have never seen a case where people didn't forgive everybody. You were Auschwitz Holocaust guard. Sure, I forgive you. I forgive everything.
Okay. Well, I haven't.
I've never seen where people didn't. However, it can be very hard to forgive yourself because you planned all the events of your life and you know what you meant to do with your life. And we all fall very short of our hopeful plans that we make because we don't even remember what the plans were. We don't remember why we planned in that horrible first marriage and all of that. So we don't know how to, process them in a way that will grow spiritually.
Okay, so
it can be tough to forgive yourself, and that's one of the biggest reasons to learn to forgive
kicking
while you're
yourself in the
here.
ass.
Because
Well,
you're flexing your muscle to be able to really forgive when you get there.
That's difficult here and now. It's the most difficult, absolutely.
And that's why you're coming in the first place. Is you have this big.
Well,
grand
we must
plan.
have come from somewhere that we're holding on to this to be able to get to that, to be able to review it, to be able to release it, and then go to yourself and so on and so forth. So I feel like it's incomplete. I feel like there is an incompletion. I feel like we know here. We're learning through years of documentations and findings about afterlife, and also from what is shared, and then there is also gaps, and then there are certain things that's sort of not linked. There's certain missing links around, which is what puzzles me, which I'm sure puzzles many people.
Yeah, the problem is there's nothing that in our very limited Earth lives that compares to this greater reality we enter at death. We just don't have any way to process it.
Yeah.
And curiously, we go there in our sleep. When our bodies sleep, one of the reasons they sleep is that we travel out of body. Most of us do it almost every night. And meet with our guides, we meet with our dead loved ones.
Well, that seems more like the sleeping.
We do all kinds of things.
Yeah. The sleeping and the dreaming is very similar to what you are talking about with respect to the afterlife and what you're explaining here. I can understand because in our dreams, for example, we are flying. It's not, even though we're seeing on a physical things and physical experiences and so on. If we're feeling them, we're seeing them. But it's also a completely different reality in our dream state. So I feel like that's the closest that I can somehow relate to. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean, one of the reasons our dreams are sometimes so screwy is that our material brains, get left behind. We do all this stuff. We come back into our material bodies before they wake up, and our brains have no idea of how to process what we have been doing in the afterlife. So our brains use things from our daily life and make up stories and tell stories to us, and that's what we're told that we did, but it isn't. I mean, it's just impossible for our bodies, our material brains, to understand where we went during the night.
Just to answer your question, Oscar, as Roberta had answered it earlier, we don't need to sleep. We don't need to eat. If we want to, though, we can.
Yes.
If we want to, we'd have a viewer who is asking if
another question. Yes.
If there's if we sleep in the afterlife and
there actually is an answer to that. Most people seem to take a nap soon after they get there, and then they don't sleep after that. You can, but most people don't do it because you don't get tired.
Right.
Ever. Okay, so is all of this is happening, and how long are they staying there? How long are they staying in the afterlife? Is this infinitumly they're there? Or like we have a lifespan. We have a time constraint here on Earth, right? We're here. We know that we live up to somewhat to a specific age range. We never really reach 200, at least not in this day and age. So what is it over there? What is
There is no such thing as objective time. In the afterlife levels, we can experience time, and we tend to still try to experience it when we first get there, but we become disengaged from time. There is no time. So in a sense, we can do whatever we want forever in the afterlife. What seems to be the case is we start to become hungry for growth. We all want to reach level 6. Every drive, you can imagine, the drive for money, the drive for sex, the drive for everything, hunger, all those drives cannot together match the drive for spiritual growth we feel when we are in the afterlife levels. We want to grow. And the only way really to do that efficiently and well is to take another cycle back through the earth. And that's what people do. They start planning another lifetime. So the people who will be important in that lifetime.
And they plan to come back here. Is there no other place to go
there are
except here and there?
Yes, but here is the strongest doll because you get the most out of it.
Right.
Yeah,
so they choose to come here because they want to go up.
Most people will choose one place where they're going to do most of their lifetimes.
Okay.
They will occasionally do one or two somewhere else, but mostly, and so most of the people you know here have always been incarnating here and always will incarnate here.
Right.
But, we all have a friend who seems like they're from another planet. Well, they may well be from another planet. It may be that they're taking a lifetime here.
Right.
That seems to be something that everybody does. They do one or two in other places.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you get it?
Wow. Yeah.
So essentially, if I can summarize as we're getting to the close of the show, from my understanding from reading the book and our wonderful experience here with you today, essentially the entire purpose of incarnating into these physical vessels and having this earthly experience is to be able to go through these big experiences that when we were before in our
before
in the before afterlife set up for ourselves to have these vast opportunities for growth, or what some may call challenges, in order to be able to give ourselves that opportunity to express that much more forgiveness, that much more love, that we may increase the vibrational rate of our essential beingness, so that once we have transcended the physical and are in the afterlife, we will be able to have the freedom to move amongst the different levels, which there are 6 as you have approximately that you have mentioned, in the afterlife. Therefore, a greater freedom and a greater experience of spiritual attainment.
Yeah, that's what we're really hungry for, is spiritual growth. And it seems to be more complex than just learning to love and forgive.
Okay.
The sense I get is that right now we're in kindergarten or even nursery school. These are basic lessons in loving and forgiving.
Okay.
Apparently there are more complex lessons for more
goodness.
and I'm not sure what they are. But
aren't these enough?
I mean, really, like, why?
Aren't these enough?
Why they're in the first place?
Forever, apparently.
Right. Well, of course, infinitum. Everything
Yes.
is infinitum, so
yes.
that makes perfect sense.
But it's all fun. As long as it's fun, you don't mind if it goes on forever. You want it to.
Right.
Well, if I could live and exist eternally having a blast,
Yes.
why not?
Yes.
Why not?
Exactly.
On that note of the fun of dying, I'm going to put this on the screen again. Anyone who is interested watching, this is incredible. It's a wonderful book. You get to read a lot more, and you get to take your time.
And it's very fast and very easy read, I must say. I was able to whip through the book with such relative ease and depth of comprehension. So it's not something that you're going to have to invest weeks upon weeks of your time into. A couple of nights and you'll be done. And then you can go back and reread all of the things that you loved the most and the things that you were the most confused about.
Mm-hmm. And it'll probably come back and have a different meaning and an understanding differently at each time in your life, throughout your life. So it's quite infinite.
Bless you, dear. What a wonderful thing to say.
Oh,
speaking of which,
it's meant to be easy to understand because most of the people who need this information need it urgently.
Yes.
So I've tried to make it as simple as possible to understand.
And you have very beautifully.
You should. Why should it make it difficult for somebody to understand something?
No, it is easy. It's very, very simple.
And we are looking forward to learning more
Mm-hmm.
from Roberta on March 25th. Please mark your calendars. Roberta will be coming back to Being Love TV Souls Talk. Calm down.
I know.
Souls Talking Brain Show, where we are going to learn about the fun of talking with
yes.
those who have passed,
Talking
who have
to them.
transcended
Yeah,
the
the
physical.
fun of staying in touch.
The other-
with
the
The
other
fun
one.
of staying in touch.
Yes.
The
So-
whole new
I've
other.
heard from so many people who were so happy to discover they've been hearing all along from their dead loved ones. They just didn't know it.
Oh well, I can't wait for that.
Oh my. We're going to have to put restraints on you.
I'm gonna have to take deep meditation to just calm myself. You know, Roberta, it's been a pleasure.
It has been
Really
for
a
me,
pleasure.
too. Thank you.
I wish we
so
had.
much.
I wish we had more time. You know, but again, you're coming back, and I am very excited. And all you remember the date,
Wednesday, March 25th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We always air on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to seeing you next week and continuing infinitum in the embrace of love's bliss, benefiting all of we. Blessedly be, everyone. Thank you so very much for being here. Roberta, until next time, thank you.
Have a wonderful spring, everyone. Consider yourselves hugged.
Back at you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Souls, talking brain, enlightened minds, seeking out truths, seeing the world with the mind of those who see beyond the three-dimensionally. Souls, talking brain. Ask the right questions, uncovers the blinds. Souls, talking brain, enlightening minds, oh yeah, seeking out truth.